why did you decide to become an artist? I think that's one of the things that we all confront. I certainly speaking personally, I constantly ask myself, did I become an artist because I wanted to do that? Was there a specific event that suggested to me that being an artist was something that was, I don't know, noble or something that was socially useful or of value? But in any case, the question is that one asks oneself is, why do I do this? Do you have an answer for that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I've been thinking about this question, and I probably have many answers, and I will not be able to give them all, but it's also an interesting question because the answer that I would give to that question will probably be, it's probably different today. I would give you a different answer today to the one that I would have given you maybe many years ago. Or and why? Because we do have these models in mind. We do 40 years ago, I had an idea of what an artist was supposed to be or to do, and of course today my understanding of the artist as a practitioner is slightly different. So to be honest, I probably had a very romantic idea at that time, and I had an environment also that had encouraged that, because my mother and my grandmother, they were people who were making things. They were also involved in music. They were involved in making things with their hands and enjoying making them. So I probably picked that up from them and started to see that something could be done and accomplished as an artist. And finally, I became an artist. I would say that I became an artist. It's not, I cannot say that I have decided to be an artist at that time, but I have made some choices and I have became an artist through maybe 10 years. And if I do consider the education, choosing to do a degree in the college in visual arts, and then continuing at the university level, and renting my first studio and getting my first exhibition. So finally, everything started to unfold, and today, of course, I am an artist, and I'm still thinking about what it is to be an artist today. So it's still changing. So it's an interesting question, because we can invest that question of different meaning, depending of the time that we are addressing it.
Was there something in the environment in which you grew up that suggested a particular way of being an artist? Something that you found most striking about what the potential would be as a maker, as an artist?
Mm-hmm. Probably not. I don't think that I had a very clear idea. I think that I mostly I had a model in mind. I had a vague idea of what an artist was. Living a little bit, being marginal, living on the edge, making decisions that weren't expected. Probably that was probably the idea that I had. But and that is probably the romantic idea of what it is to be an artist. Being an artist is about being on the margin, having your own schedule, making things that are not expected, and proposing ideas that people haven't think about. So I guess that was the idea that I had, but it was pretty unclear. And but again, I think that my environment has made that possible for me. Because I've met people as well. I remember at the college level, I've met one of my teachers suggested me to go to that college. He saw something in me. This teacher was a visual art teacher, someone who's teaching. He was giving us project to do, and he just thought, well, if you like making things, maybe you should consider to do a degree at the college level. So I have followed his advice, and I ended up. Doing a degree in the Cégep. No? We have a Cégep in Quebec, so I did a degree in visual arts. And so, and after that I decided to do my degree at Concordia University at Luquan, and then I've met more people there. I've met interesting people teaching in these institutions, and I guess I was also. I was ready to make the move and to start to work seriously. I've also started to rent my first studio during these years. So I was pretty young. It was a decision. I knew that I wanted to have a studio and that I wanted to have a studio practice. So this is what happened. But
I'm interested by the fact that you've taken on the concept of abstraction so thoroughly. We'll get back to that, but I'm wondering, was there something in what you were encountering either at school or earlier that led you to this question of abstraction?
Mm-hmm. So in Montreal, at Concordia, as well as at Luquan, during the late 70s. So you see, I started to study at the university level in the early 90s. So Guido Molinari was teaching at Concordia, Yves Gaucher, Jean Gauguin, and at Luquan they had also the Venancourt. They had I spent maybe a half a year at Luquan. So the trend was about abstraction. That was a very important moment in Quebec painting after the automatistes with Bordua and Riopel and Ferron, and so we had another strong moment in painting, and it was with the plasticians. So all of these people were probably in their early 40s, mid 50s, and they were exhibiting, and it was also possible to see their work in most of the museum, because I was taking this very seriously. I was going to the museum on a regular basis. The Musée d'Art Contemporain was at La Cité des Arts, and I was going there regularly. And we had the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Montreal as well. So these people they became a part of my environment at the university level, and they had an influence on me. And so I've really started to look at abstraction seriously. And I have also worked with them, so it was an interesting moment and a strong moment for me.
I guess the question of abstraction in Quebec is a larger question that I don't know if you have a thought about that, but if you do, maybe you could just touch on that. Because of course the obvious question may be, why not realism, for instance, the nativist tradition of painting houses, and I guess I think back to earlier Quebec paintings, which were very much about landscape and such. So this question of abstraction in Quebec at that period seems curiously interesting.
And well, again, the influences were coming very often from France, very often, but we also know that at the same time a lot was happening in the States, so that was a bit the story of Bordua. Bordua was able to go to New York, and he was there for I think 2-3 weeks, and he saw a couple of shows, and but finally decided to go to France, to Paris. And in Paris, he just wrote back to his friend saying that it's not happening in Paris anymore, it's happening in New York. So, but probably because of the language, we were attracted by Paris to go during these years, of course. But at the same time, something quite important was happening in New York with Jackson Pollock and the Expressionist painters. So the influence from France was coming. There's Mathieu and many other artists who were also, and the Surrealists, of course, were very, very important. They had a great influence, and Breton came to Montreal during these years as well. So I don't have all the small, I don't have all the dates right now, but we know that many of these people have traveled, and they started to plant seed here and there, and so very often they had an influence on the Quebec painters, and then the Quebec painters had an influence on their own surrounding and so forth. So
I'd like to quote something to you. It's from a discussion of your work, and I'll just quote it in full, and you can comment as you'd like. I'm kind of curious with respect to this quotation. I'm kind of curious about what a painting can do, what you as a painter can do, and I'm wondering how you feel about the quotation, which is, the spectator, confronted by the constant mutation of images, gets drawn like a child into exploring each and every detail. It allows the viewer not only to apprehend an image, but certainly to enter and inhabit it. Would you see that as an adequate reference to your work?
who has written that? But yes, we can certainly see this. Yes, I'm thinking more, you see, in terms of abstraction. So, yes, many we can expand a little bit more on what I've just said. Well, we know the desire for most of these Quebec abstract painters to open up the political arena in which they were living in. So that's the Bourdieu period. If we think of the Duplessis and the religion and so forth, so for them it was probably a very interesting vocabulary to use in order to break the ice and to open the doors and to start to breathe a little bit more. So it was probably very interesting, as it was for maybe Malevich as well, with the Suprematists and many other movements in painting. So we can maybe see this just as an opportunity for many painters to just start to open the doors and make sure that they can feel freer, and which also imply all the rules and the politic and so forth. So that's for that. For me, of course, many years after, the signification is very different. It's very different because the door has been opened. So now what do you do 30 years after, and maybe more? So we need to find another way. We need to find new motivation to make what we are making as abstract painter. It could become an academic exercise, as it is often the case with many artists. They just inherit. They have inherited something, a vocabulary, and they keep developing it, and they do it by pure pleasure, for aesthetic reason, and of formal and aesthetic reason. So, but we can also ask us new questions, or the same questions. So why abstract, and what is that doing? So I have spent some time thinking about that, and so going back to your questions, recently I was thinking of how I am thinking of the tableau, the paint, the canvas, and that I have explored under a different form. So I've been thinking about it as a place where things are, a space where things are converging. So and a place where different reality are converging, and so. And when they do converge, as in a subway or in a mall, if people are converging, the different reality are also interfering. and so if they do interfere, they also mutate. So going back to the mutation, so this is something that interests me. It's how different reality in a space, such as a painting, could interfere, touch each other, move each other, could speak or interact and transform each other and mutate. So that's maybe where yes, the child could step in and have fun with this kind of game, because everything is becoming possible. You need of course an active viewer. You need someone who's willing to play, and of course the painter has to put some rules. That's our job, is to choose a space, to choose a vocabulary, and to put some rules, and to make that game interesting for someone who is taking the time to look. So that's a bit what I'm doing, and and I'm trying to keep having fun doing that. But it's not always easy. Sometimes the fun is not there.
But it's still a game to be played.
I think so. I think there's a game. It's well, the game for me, it's interesting as long as we believe that some rules have to be structured, but of course it's a game that is also opening up on something maybe more, yes, I would say more unexpected. And of course it's the sensorial experience that we are having of this kind of a perceptual experience. If we have to deal with color, if we have to deal with space, if we have to deal with texture, with illusion, with sensuality, so then the game starts to become a beautiful, it's becoming a sensorial experience, finally. So it's becoming a place where we can surprise people, and it's a particular moment, it's a particular experience there.
One's tempted to think that the fewer the rules, the more interesting the game.
Yeah. And the rules, of course, they could be sometimes the artist rules. We are all giving us some rules, but they could become the rules of the viewer, because yes, I've been teaching for a number of years now, and what I find so exciting is to realize how a painting could be approached by different people. Some people could approach a painting by the space in the painting. Some will jump on the color. Some will go to the texture. Some will go to the design. Some will go, but very often people are entering the painting from different places. Sometimes they do enter by the same place, but very often they are all finding a different place, because it's very often about them. It's about how they understand space. It's about how they like color, how they are intrigued by the tactility of the texture. So it's interesting to notice that.
Which leads me, I think, Michel, to ask, in a given work, what processes do you normally follow in order to develop that work? Is there a particular process that you find is most useful to you in developing a piece?
So more and more I'm looking back at what I've done. So that's my process has shifted during the last, let's say, 10, 15 years. And why? Because I've been practicing for a number of years now, let's say 30 years, maybe a little bit more. So I've been practicing for a number of years, so my relation is very different. My aversion to art is different. It's now more and more motivated by what I have done, and what I have accomplished. So I'm going back sometime to my recent work, or my last recent work. So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at different things that I would like to pursue or to develop further. and or I'm looking at things that I would like to try again, but differently. So, so I would say that my process is feeding on that more and more right now. But at the beginning, at the very beginning, I was of course looking much more at again at history. I was looking at my recent past in terms of a group of artists who had done work that interests me. You know, I was looking at yes, for a time I was looking at Edward Kelly. That's many years ago, of course. I was looking at Edward Kelly. I was looking at Frank Stella many years ago again. Many years ago. I'm not thinking of his recent work. So I was looking at Richard Tuttle. I was looking at Mary Eilman, Maura Dreyer. I was looking at painters who were asking questions that I felt close to, and but more and more I'm looking back at what I have done in order to build up on my work. And it's not because I will not be interested to look outside. It's simply because I feel that there's things that I would like to resolve. You know, it's mostly about looking at things. My process is based on what hasn't been resolved, and that could be brought back and developed further. Yeah.
You've worked, of course, largely or almost entirely within the framework of painting. And I'm kind of curious about the question of materiality and its relationship to ideas. But I have a sense, thinking about your work, that there's a very material sense, a very material quality about the work. Do you have any thoughts about the question of material?
Yes, material. So this is it's interesting because right now in the contemporary art world, there's maybe a return to material. There's more and more people writing about material, and there's an interest for material. I think we feel like revisiting or isolating or looking more closely at materiality. And I think that this movement is probably influenced by our interest for our environment, ecology, and so I think this is what is behind that. But this is fine with me. It's interesting. In my case, material has been there, but I think it was probably more there at the very beginning. I was using during the 80s. I was using construction material. Heavy material that was recognizable. If you think of plywood, tempest, masonite, and commercial paint. So I was purposely using that kind of material to speak about these references. And so that was during a time when I was exploring an installation a little bit more. And but these days, the materiality is there, but I'm insisting much more on the illusion that the painting is creating. I'm kind of back to some sort of a strength of the medium, which is illusion. I've been exploring many different possibilities, and now I feel that focusing on illusion is an interesting way to create an intimate relationship with the viewer. It's I'm not in space, as I think many of us have explored the space of the gallery, the space of the museum, the materiality throughout the installation and large-scale artwork. And right now, I'm kind of pleased to go back to something much smaller.
Art history is obviously of great importance to you.
Well, there's again going back to materiality. There's a movement in the States right now that is called material thinking. It's a nice way to you know, if you want to speak about material, if you want to explore material, material thinking, it's a nice way to think about it. It's a nice way to name an experience and to
if one is looking around, whether through the lens of art history or whatever, do you find, as you do look around, that there is a particular strategy at work that interests you in contemporary art today? You might say, is there a kind of zeitgeist or a dominant discourse, or a discourse at any rate that interests you?
Yes. This is becoming more and more difficult, I think, to find. It's becoming more and more difficult because during the last 15, 20 years, the main discourse was based on pluralism. And this discourse was about integrating people coming from different cultures, different references. If we think of the question of identity, that has been on the front burner for a number of years. The question of references coming from other countries, third world countries, and different market opening also in Asia, India, China. So all these new realities start to have an influence on our own market and on our way of thinking. So because we are never really alone, no? We are working from some set of references. And now, and during the last 10, 15 years, these references have changed a great deal. So I cannot say that I'm working from. So for me right now, I think, well, as a white male, it's sometimes difficult to have. It was simply difficult to take advantage of that. It's just because I was already a part of another history that was put in question. If we think of the Western, the 20th century, the modern art period that became that started the whole abstraction movement. So it's a bit hard to be in both places. so I was at the end of and I was of course not the initiator of that modern movement. I was at the end of it, but at the end of it, during the 80s, finally the new discourse that came in was the one that started to introduce new voices, very interesting voices, and it could be the voice of women artists as well that started to appear more and more during these years. If we think of Barbara Kruger, Cindy Sherman, so all of these interesting, Nancy Spiro, all of these very important people. So, but today, quite frankly, I think that everything is pretty scattered and very much scattered. It's hard to say. There's maybe a revival of materiality, and we can feel that. And it will be hard to name if there is any major movement beside something that is very eclectic and that goes in many different directions. But maybe what I can say to that is that it doesn't go forward. it goes in diagonal, and it goes in different ways. And I'm not saying this to suggest that it's not good. It's a different movement. If we've been thinking of a movement going forward during the 20th century with the modern art period, and thinking basically of the avant-garde, who was critiquing the recent past and moving on. So this kind of understanding of history and art history, this linear path that was based on progress, is now not the case anymore. But we look at different paths and paths that are multiple and that goes in different directions, and they are probably they are very interesting paths. I think they are stretching. They are somehow making things a little bit more elastic and make us discover different possibilities.
I wonder, in that case, or thinking of that, whether theory the body of theory that exists, of course, in and around the visual arts. Whether theory plays an important role in your thinking about how abstraction can be brought to bear on, I don't know, the social forces that constitute contemporary culture. Do you see theory as an important touchstone for your thinking?
Well, the answer is yes, but I'm using theory a little bit like fiction. I'm not using it as you see, so there's a couple, for instance, if we think of, if we go to, if we use here Gilles Deleuze, if we think of the body without organs, you know, so it's a beautiful concept. So, but it's also a concept that is proposing an image. So that's what interests me. It's how a concept could also propose an image, and it's not a figurative image that I have in mind right now. It's an image of the thing that is not complete and that is not full, and so that is unfinished or that could not be defined, totally defined. So or the question of the emancipation by Jacques Rancière, for instance. That's also an author that is very popular, that has been popular for the last while. And this question of emancipation, what is that doing? And how it's stimulating for a painter who's always looking for a viewer, no? For someone to share or to look and to, or the question of there's an author that I just discovered recently. Her name is Catherine Malabou, and she was a student of Jacques Derrida, and she's interested by the plasticity and the plasticity of the brain. so it's again it's very interesting. So they are all ideas that I don't, and of course I'm reading some of these. I do read some of these authors, but I cannot say that I'm mastering everything that they are writing, but I'm intrigued because it's about ideas, and it's very often about ideas that we can try to figure out and to apply, and but just as a fiction. It's becoming a part of our way to relate to a bigger pool of intervention. They could be written, they could be based on ideas, or simply sensorial experience.
I like that, and the question of Deleuze. So when I think of that, I think of nuance. I think of something reading between the lines, perhaps even. Do you find that? Do you think that in your approach to abstraction, that, and you were talking about it being a game in a certain sense earlier. Is this a game in which nuance plays a large role? That the artist, one of the things that an artist can do is to offer up nuance as a means by which to invite the spectator, the viewer in, and to play the game. Would you say that's?
Yes, it would. Yes, the nuances. I like this idea to bring this in, which proposes layers. So it's yes, the game is probably it's probably the primitive structure of any kind of work. Let's say something that is coming first. Let's say the skeleton. It's like it's a skeleton. It's something that has an existence, and it's, let's say that an artwork does exist, that has some presenceness, and but there's also some intention. It's been made. No, it's not. It's something that was. It's been made by someone who was motivated to make an object, and so and to that extent, the nuances start to be, yes, if I use your word, it's interesting because it does create layers. But yes, now the word game, maybe the game should be, yes, it will really be, for me, something that implies a dialogue. It does imply a player. It could be, of course, at the beginning it's the artist who is playing, and then of course we are hoping that some other people will come and play as well. But yes, I hope I think I'm giving some connotation to that right now that are more related to sport. But
The public loves sport.
But I guess game for me it was simply implying that what we are making as does imply some rules. We are hoping that there's some structure that has been put in place and that could be recognized by the viewer. And
Michel, you teach. You have taught for a long time, and the question of artists teaching is a large issue, I guess, because so many artists do teach. And the question becomes, how does teaching and the practice that one has as an artist, how do they coincide or in some respects perhaps even conflict, if they conflict? What are your views on teaching in the years that you have taught, and how your practice benefits from it?
Well, I have, yes, I have taught in different institutions, different universities, and teaching for me was very successful when the program were really responding to the student need in terms of how they can become an artist. So so there's something quite interesting. If you do have this kind of experience, if you feel that the program is offering the tool to a student to become artists, but also to explore ideas. Huh? We can even start to simply speak about giving the tools to a student to explore ideas, and based on material, based on color, based on could be in sculpture, could be in painting, could be. So if we can simply offer that to students and offer them the facilities and the time, if a program can do that, it's usually a very exciting experience for a teacher because it's very close to the studio practice, and it does also it does address all of the reality of the studio practice, which is about time. It's about being in the studio. It's about having the time to explore ideas, to try them, to develop them, and to make successful artwork. So I've been in different places, and sometimes so many places do offer that. Some don't, but some do, and some institutions have had that, and they sometimes lost it, and some institutions are trying to they are fighting to get this back, and very often we have to find different ways to offer that to the students. Sometimes it's a matter of offering more courses, or offering the same course twice a week in order to make sure that the students will be back on the campus to work for them and for us, of course. So when the structure are in place, and if you do offer this quality that we believe in and that we are aware of as artists, it's usually a very nice experience. And I still teach. I had this past term, I have given 3 courses, and I had about 80 students. 80, that's a lot. So that's mean 26, 27 by course, and I had great moments in each of these courses with different students. The one who were really working, and the one who were really pushing themselves, and what do I discover? I think that what is stimulating me the most is to discover a sensibility. You know, you discover someone who has an interesting sensibility. You can see that students using the paint and making something engaging. It could be very, very basic. It could be in first year sometime or second year, but you can feel that there's something there. There's already something there. There's already a young person who has a nice sensibility, and then of course our job is to have them to keep working and to make sure that they can develop that sensibility. But just to recognize that, I think for me, to acknowledge that, to recognize that, to feel that, it's already a pleasure. It's a great pleasure for me to feel that. And the second one that I find more and more interesting, and or that I'm noticing more and more, it's when I see people looking at painting. It's sometimes it's in a museum, sometimes it's in school, but just to see someone who is spending time looking carefully, and who is spending time having a dialogue, a conversation. So I find that also magical. There's something magical there. But that's something that we can see, of course, in museums. Sometimes you just see people who are arriving. They are not practitioners. They are just amateurs, or they just love visiting museum, and they spend a great deal looking and trying to understand. And so that I find that very. I find that pleasurable to notice, to see. Yeah.
Do you find that in your professional life, have you found that you get that same sense of excitement of looking when we turn to the roles of the curator and the critic?
Mm-hmm. The Daigneault, for instance. We do invite international curators to take care of that. So they are coming in with their network of people, and then of course, in order to represent, if it's happening in Canada, in order to represent Canada, they get a couple of names that are given to them by our curators or museum people. So that's how it's working today. Huh? It's not very far from a Google experience, huh? It's like get on Google and we'll see who's showing where, and so this is that's a new reality. It's a new. In the past, of course, local artists were probably they were more important because the art milieu were smaller everywhere, not only in Canada, but they were smaller everywhere. So today we have the center of the world. It's not only New York, it could be in UK, London, UK, it could be in Los Angeles, it could be, so there's Cologne, Berlin, there's many marketplaces right now for art. So the influences are greater, there's more things happening, no? So the local doesn't seem to be as important as it used to be, because we need to trade, we need to... What is very disappointing to me, it's when I go to different museums. I go to museum in Canada, in UK, in Germany and so forth, and I see the same collection. They collect the same thing. So, and it's not because they are getting the best work. So if you go to a country, a museum that doesn't have a lot of money, they will have the same names, but it's not necessarily a good piece. They will have the same artist that you see everywhere, but not necessarily a good work. It's simply because they are buying the name. They don't. The work is not always there. So that is a new reality, and this is a bit disappointing because we can see that museums don't have the power to be original anymore. or to be to have their own policy. They have to follow the trend, and they have to have one of this, one of that, and of course it's also sometimes because of the collectors who are also trying to invest and to buy the artists who will do well. So the rules have changed a great deal during the last 30 years. And I don't think that it has always been like that. Some people will always say that it has always been like that, but I don't think so. I think that local artists were given much more attention in the past, and now because of this global reality and these multiple art centers, which is fine. I mean, there's some sort of a trade that has to be done, and so we keep jumping over people to get to start to collect or to buy someone. So that's probably the market and the global reality that has produced this new reality. Now, well, probably everybody will agree to say that the local artists have paid a price for that. We are put aside, and we are making room for the international one, and but it's up. I think it's probably up to the local artists to invent a new way to intervene. I think if it's true to say that, I think it's up to the local artists, to the artists who have strong practices and who are critical to create a place for them to intervene and to show their work.
Do you think that one avenue for that would be a greater sense of connection between the collectors, local collectors, international collectors, whichever, but certainly local collectors, a greater relationship on the part of artists to the collectors?
Mm-hmm. It could be. There are very interesting collectors who are doing very good work. They are collecting very seriously, and they are following artists very carefully and choosing carefully too. Yes, many are doing that. Many. There's also the one who buy just because of the name, but yes, I think we can nurture this kind of relationship with collectors that we know and that are also close to this kind of reality. And many of them are already doing that, and so it will be easy to yes.
What about the critical establishment? What do you think, Michel? Do you find that there's criticism that interests you currently, or how do you understand an interesting approach to criticism?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there any criticism?
Yes, this is. Now these days, I think that everything is beautiful. So no, I think this is. We are experiencing a very strange moment. Huh? It's a difficult time. It's for many of us right now, because it's not that we feel connected. We feel more a sense of disconnect, and it should not be the case. But yeah, this is yes, that's a part of what's happening right now. But yes, it's
because the criticism isn't there.
Yes, well, we used to have a great. I used to follow a lot. Yes, I guess right now I feel like yes, I'm staying right now to speak because I would like to be positive, but But what's happening right now, there's a question of age. Ageism is also becoming an issue. So if everything that is good is young, well, the people who are not young anymore, they are left on the side. And so, and for us to read what's happening in the paper right now, it seems to be so foreign. It has nothing to do with us anymore. So there's that's an issue, because I remember having followed what people were writing in the Globe and Mail, in the Le Devoir, and in many newspapers, and we had a great generation of art critic, but after a while it became more about promoting. It was more about promotion, and I know that newspapers are giving less and less room to young critics, and we also know that the politics is so different that you need to. It's more about how you feel. It's more about your opinion. It's not so much about a real criticism. No? So we don't have that anymore. It's very hard to find. And I think that the art media right now has to please too many people to be critical. And so there's probably still good. There's still good people here and there. There's still good art. There's many good artists, and there's still many good shows. But the things are a little bit different. It's very different, and so they have to deal with money a little bit more. They have to deal with sponsor a little bit more. They have to deal with our museum are becoming more and more open to the large public. They are making decisions in relation to that. Leonard Cohen is going to have a show at the Michel in Montreal. Well, there's many examples of this kind of artists who are now entering the museum for different reasons than the one that we believe in. So yes, the world is shifting. But I think it's still up to us to find a different avenue. I think we have to find avenues that people such as Elena, what was her name? Elena Ice, who did the PS1, did during the 70s. What was her name? The person who created the PS1 in New York. So these people are they did find a need to do something that was needed. They find ways to do something that was needed during these years, and there's many examples of that. Many interesting people have created new places, and I think that it has to be done again, and we should not expect the, let's say, standard institution to do that for us, or the official institution to do that for us, because they have their own difficulties, their own priorities. So, but I think it's possible for people who feel the need to create that, to find a way to do this.
Do you think that this is a crisis of the art system as a whole?
And that probably happened at different times. It's not the first time that the milieu had to take a different direction. I think it did happen probably many times. And I think it's happening again now. The belief structure that we use, that has been put in place during the 70s, let's say, the museum, the artist-run galleries, the commercial galleries, the museum. So those structures that were put in place during the 70s, they start now to take a new phase. And if it's a crisis, it will oblige some artists to start to think differently about how things should be shown and how they can intervene in the milieu. So it's only a crisis in terms of a shift and moving towards something else.
The question of maintaining a career can be an incredible test on the persistence, the perseverance of being an artist. In your experience, Michel, do you find that the question of creating and maintaining a career has been difficult, or has it been well within the system as it has functioned up until now?
Mhm.
What are your views on the difficulty, the need to be persistent
Mhm.
in the construction of a career?
Mhm. Well, this is you see, this is it's an interesting question because it's a question for someone of my generation, I think. This is not a question for someone who's 35, 40, or because at 35, 40 years old, things are probably taking a shape in terms of career, and I think that I did pretty well during these years in terms of having time to practice. I had a lot of time to practice. I have received grants. I've received grants from both level of government, the federal and the provincial. I've received the Paul Krasner grant. I've received also grants from the private foundation, and so I was able to use that money and to practice and to buy time and to also exhibit. And I was not during this year concerned by money, and I was not also concerned to sell because I was able to live on a small budget. So I was able to do that for a number of years, and of course the time came that when it was becoming urgent to make more money, to have a regular income, and this is when I started to look for a teaching position. So. And that was probably in my early 40s, so it started to become more and more urgent when I saw some difficulty that artists went through, and also I saw also that yes, that grants were also not always coming because after having got a number, you have to share the pie and let some other artists to take advantage of that. So, but this question is becoming more important when the only value that is out there, it's about selling. So, and this is why it's a difficult question because we have now to ask ourselves that question, and I have now to ask myself that question: what is motivating me to continue to make what I'm making when it's becoming more difficult to show, and when the people that want to exhibit my work, they are doing it because they want to sell it. So there's two questions. It's not only about exhibiting. There's two things that should be accomplished here. Is to exhibit and to sell in order to keep exhibiting and to keep your relation going with your dealer. So this is so finally it's an interesting question because it is probably more difficult for an artist who doesn't sell to continue than for an artist that is selling. So if it's true to say that there's very, very good artists that are making very difficult work and that they don't sell, so for them it's probably more difficult to continue, but they do. So if they do, it's because they have found a way, they have found a way to nurture something that is very, very important. And so this is what we have to go back to. I think we have to go back to the first pleasure, to the first stimulation and motivation that we had to make art. So this is what we do when you get in your mid-50s, early 60s, you have to start to think about the pleasure that you have to keep making what you are making, and because it cannot be used for money only, because it will not come. If it didn't come before, if it hasn't come during the last 20 years, it may come sometime, but it will not come as a big income, so we have to think of it differently. But yet we still have to find. And it's up to us to find pleasure, and I think we do, because if we do continue, it's because we do find a reason to do that. And I think, and there's so many good artists who are managing to do it. So, and many good artists that we don't see out there, but they keep that practice going. So I think that's interesting. That is something that we should keep in mind, and I think that if we do manage to do that, we are winning. We are winning.
I'm tempted to wonder whether, and maybe this is a bit to overstate the question, but I wonder if it's true that marketing has become exponentially more significant, globally speaking, in the art system in recent decades, perhaps in a recent decade. I'm wondering if the growth of the power of marketing has, in some respects, offered up this challenge to something of value. That, in fact, if I can use the word authenticity, that there is here a crisis of authenticity as marketing starts to become more significant than research. If we can understand the artist whose purpose is to find something of value, irrespective of marketing. Would you say that this is, in some respects, a crisis of authenticity in the art system today?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so for myself, during the last couple of years, I've been thinking about these questions because of because I'm in relation with younger artists, because I'm teaching, but also because of my own practice, and because I'm also seeing the market shifting. I'm also seeing what's happening out there. So and so the value are changing. That's pretty. So I guess we are all noticing that the values have been changing and shifting. So, but very often the belief also are shifting, and they sometimes take a very different definition, such as the notion of authenticity. So what does that mean today? It was a part of the 19th century Romantic period, and but is that a notion that is suiting us today? It might just vanish, it might just go, and it might. Recently I was thinking about the notion of signature style, and sometimes I feel that the artists who are succeeding, they do have a signature. And I just thought, how come that this is coming back? Because in abstraction, for many years, it was never an issue, because if you use square, stripe, circle, you can be more than one using them, and so very often artists who were dealing with an abstract vocabulary, they weren't defined by their style, but by a signature, because they were sharing a similar vocabulary. And of course, there's always exception. I think that Riopel is an exception. He has developed a style, and so there's some artists who have developed a signature style. But if we go back to Bourdieu, I don't believe that Bourdieu has done that. And Bourdieu has a very complex practice. He's been moving from a decade to a decade. He came up with a different vocabulary, So he was not believing probably in a signature, something that is recognizable and from very far away. So, but today, because of the new technology, because of the global reality, there's maybe now a desire to focus. and we maybe need, because of the noise, because of the quantity of images, we maybe need now to recognize someone and to say, this is so and so, this is so and so, and so there's maybe a return to that, but to the signature style. But for the question of authenticity, that is maybe something that is today more difficult to define, and after it's maybe more difficult to define as something in which we believe in. So something, I don't think that we believe in authenticity anymore, or in the same way. It's I think it's not something that is let's say invested in the object. It could be a part of someone's practice, but I don't think that it's recognizable in the object that is produced by that person, because I think we are sharing much more our images, and we are thinking about images differently, and during the last 10, 15 years we have this notion of archives that has been also, yes, that is something that is important for many people. Why people are so interested by archives? Why are we so interested to go back to these old documents? It's probably because we are looking at things from a technological point of view now. I mean, we are aware of technology, we are aware of the change of the proof and the copy and the digital, and so it's all of these notions now, all of these reality, they are again shuffled, and they are shuffling things, and maybe invite us to revisit the whole documents, or to invite us to rethink our use of them. So there's maybe that too. So there's maybe many things are moving at the same time. Our relation to the past, our understanding of history, and our relation to time, the time that is not linear anymore, but that is going in different direction. The archive as a new reality, and we can work with it, we can borrow, we can transform, but we know that we will not find anything maybe that is, we won't find any truth in there. We will just find visual information that could be altered and reused. So I think that this is what is, I think we have to revisit these terms and see how they have changed, and